Welcome to Middle East Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Gazans went to work in Israel on October 7. Many are now in Israeli prisons. Detained, beaten, underfed. Gazan workers in Israel describe ordeal after October 7 attack. Israeli army says troops have taken operational control of Gaza port. Israel searches for more evidence of Hamas presence at Gaza's largest hospital. Germany raids anti-Israel Muslim organizations. Gazans went to work in Israel on October 7. Many are now in Israeli prisons. Wall Street Journal. According to the Wall Street Journal, when Hamas launched its attacks on the 7th of October, Mar Skeik, a 62-year-old from the Gaza Strip, was working in the Tel Aviv neighborhood. A week later he was taken into custody by police officers and detained for several days in a small cell with other detainees, who Skeik claims were beaten by guards. Many Gazans were held in Israeli prisons, where they said they faced mistreatment that included beatings, underfeeding, and being urinated on. Israeli officials didn't respond to requests for comment. Detained, beaten, underfed. Gazan workers in Israel describe ordeal after October 7 attack. Wall Street Journal. When Hamas launched attacks in October that killed 1,200 people in southern Israel, Israel revoked work permits for 18,000 Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. It is unclear how many Gazans were affected, but thousands were rounded up and held in Israeli prisons, where they say they were beaten, underfed, and had no access to telecommunications. Israel said it would continue to hold an unspecified number of detainees until November 30 under emergency powers. Israeli army says troops have taken operational control of Gaza port. ABC. The Israeli army has claimed to have taken operational control of Gaza port, a key piece of infrastructure in the Palestinian territory. The port was said to have been used by Hamas as a training facility for their naval commando forces to plan and execute terrorist attacks. The Israeli Defense Force, IDF, released a video of soldiers engaging with Hamas militants in the port of Gaza. However, the date of the video and photos could not be independently verified. Israel has also refused a request from the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights to access the country, amid growing concerns about the violence in the war with Hamas. Gunmen attacked a checkpoint near Jerusalem, wounding 6 security forces before being killed by Israeli police. Israel has ordered civilians to leave towns in southern Gaza, dropping leaflets from aircraft instructing them to evacuate their places of residence and head to known shelters. The UN predicts widespread outbreaks of disease and hunger in Gaza after weeks of Israeli assault on the densely populated Palestinian enclave, with the World Health Organization warning of worrying trends in disease spread in Gaza. Israel searches for more evidence of Hamas presence at Gaza's largest hospital. Wall Street Journal. The Israeli military has continued its search of Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City in order to find evidence that it is being used by Hamas for military purposes. Israel has been under growing pressure to justify sending troops into the medical facility. The military released footage of military equipment it claims to have found hidden in the hospital, including AK-47 assault rifles, grenades, battle vests, and a Hamas command center. There was no evidence shown of underground complexes or the alleged tunnel network, but the search is ongoing. The Israeli search demonstrates the difficulties faced by Israel in the conflict, as further fighting risks more civilian casualties and Israel's international support is diminished. The search also presents Israel with a political and diplomatic challenge, as it needs to produce convincing evidence to justify its actions in the hospital, otherwise it will face further international criticism. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza due to the Israeli military campaign is deepening, with the last functioning mill in Gaza being destroyed. The World Food Programme also stated that the last of its contracted bakeries in Gaza had been forced to close. There are reports that the Israeli military has dropped leaflets advising residents to leave towns along the eastern edge of the Gaza Strip, near Khan Yunis. The towns have seen their populations increase as people have fled the fighting further north in Gaza City. The Israeli military also bombed the Gaza home of Hamas's political leader, Ismail Haniyeh, and gained control of the Gaza harbor. The United Nations and residents in parts of southern Gaza are anticipating further Israeli military movements. Germany raids anti-Israel Muslim organizations. Financial Times. Police and intelligence agencies have raided 54 properties across Germany as part of a crackdown on anti-Israel Islamist groups. The German Interior Ministry has opened an investigation into the Islamic Center Hamburg, IZH, over its connections to Iran and Lebanese paramilitary group Hezbollah. The IZH has been under government surveillance since 1993, and despite failing to have surveillance orders lifted, has previously denied the accusations regarding its connections to Iran. The raids come as anti-Semitic hate crimes have surged following the recent attack on Israel by Hamas, mostly due to Muslims attending pro-Palestinian rallies. Israel orders residents from southern Gaza towns, raising fear of war spread. South China Morning Post. Israel has ordered civilians to leave 4 towns in the southern part of the Gaza Strip, raising fears that its war against Hamas could spread to areas it had previously declared safe. The towns of Bani Shahala, Kazah, Abbasan and Karara, which are home to more than 100,000 people, are now sheltering tens of thousands more who have fled other areas. Israel has already ordered the evacuation of the entire northern half of Gaza before sending in its ground forces at the end of October. The United Nations has said that around 2/3 of Gaza's 2.3 million people have been made homeless since Israel began retaliation against Hamas for a deadly rampage in southern Israeli towns. Since then, Israel has pounded Gaza with airstrikes and cut off food and fuel. Communications have also been cut off to Al-Shifa Hospital, which is the biggest hospital in Gaza. The United Nations is trying to find a way to evacuate the hospital, but options are limited by security and logistical constraints. Football can bring joy to Lebanon amid Gaza war. Al Jazeera. Lebanon and Palestine will commence their qualification campaign for the 2026 FIFA World Cup as war looms large over both countries. The Cedars' first fixture has been switched from Beirut to Sharjah in the United Arab Emirates amid concerns that the ongoing conflict could spread to Lebanon. Lebanon's economy has been severely affected by years of mismanagement and allegations of corruption, with a disastrous explosion at the Beirut port in 2020 causing further devastation. Inflation, power blackouts, and historic lows for the currency have all contributed to public distrust in the government. In such difficult times, football can offer a source of unity and hope. Lebanon's national team manager Rashid Nasser and veteran midfielder Mohamed Haidar both expressed concern for the war and its potential impact on their livelihoods. The entire football setup in Lebanon needs the national team to perform well as the sport's financial fortunes have followed the general economy's decline. Lebanon and Palestine are grouped together with Australia and Bangladesh in the second round of qualification, where the top 2 from each group will advance to the final round where 8 automatic World Cup places will be contested. Live updates: Palestinians in parts of southern Gaza receive notices to evacuate. Associated Press. Gaza's Shifa hospital has been raided by Israeli forces, with Saudi Arabia condemning the action as a blatant violation of international law. The Israeli military claims that Hamas militants operate from the hospital, but so far they have found no evidence of this. The Israeli military has also issued evacuation notices to Palestinians in parts of southern Gaza, indicating that the fighting is set to expand. Meanwhile, protests in Washington calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war have resulted in arrests. Are Israel and Hamas nearing a hostage deal? What to know? Al Jazeera. Israel and Hamas are reportedly negotiating a deal to secure the release of dozens of people held captive by Hamas in exchange for a 3-day ceasefire. The deal, which is being mediated by Qatar, could also involve the release of some Palestinian women and children from Israeli jails. The U.S. is believed to be coordinating the negotiations, as some of its citizens are among the captives. The number of civilian captives to be released by Hamas could be as high as 50, while Israel would also increase the amount of humanitarian aid allowed into Gaza. Middle East Roundup: Is Shifa Hospital really a Hamas ops hub? Al Jazeera. Gaza is losing its connection with the outside world as its telecom towers lose power, making it more difficult to report on the situation inside. The biggest hospital in Gaza, Al-Shifa Hospital, has also been raided by Israeli forces, causing deaths due to a lack of fuel needed to run its generators and a lack of medicines. Israel claims that it is attacking hospitals because it is attacking Hamas operatives hiding within them. However, international law protects hospitals except in very specific cases. The destruction in Gaza has been mapped onto several international capitals, demonstrating the scale of the damage. Dear viewers, I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the 6 Degrees world. Today, I bring you a summary of the latest news from the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. First, we have reports of Gazan workers being detained and mistreated by Israeli authorities. Many Gazans who were working in Israel at the time of the attacks were taken into custody and held in Israeli prisons. They claim to have faced beatings, underfeeding, and other mistreatment. This raises concerns about the treatment of detainees and the impact of the conflict on innocent civilians. Next, the Israeli army has claimed to have taken operational control of the Gaza port, which they say was used by Hamas for training and planning attacks. The Israeli military has also continued its search of Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City, looking for evidence of Hamas using it for military purposes. The search presents a political and diplomatic challenge for Israel, as it needs to produce convincing evidence to justify its actions. In Germany, police and intelligence agencies have raided properties connected to anti-Israel Islamist groups. This crackdown comes as anti-Semitic hate crimes have surged following the recent attack on Israel by Hamas. Israel has also ordered civilians to leave southern Gaza towns, raising fears that the conflict could spread to new areas. The United Nations is trying to find a way to evacuate Al-Shifa Hospital, the largest hospital in Gaza, but faces challenges due to security and logistical constraints. Amid the conflict, Lebanon and Palestine are commencing their qualification campaign for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Football can offer a source of unity and hope in difficult times, and the national teams of both countries hope to bring joy to their people. Finally, there are reports of negotiations between Israel and Hamas for a possible hostage exchange and a 3-day ceasefire. The U.S. is believed to be coordinating these negotiations, as some of its citizens are among the captives. In conclusion, the situation in Gaza remains dire, with reports of mistreatment of detainees, raids on hospitals, and the displacement of civilians. The conflict continues to escalate, and the international community must work towards a peaceful resolution. Remember, your voice matters. Feel free to share your thoughts and questions on these news stories. What are your thoughts on the ongoing conflict in Gaza? Thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned for more updates from the 6 Degrees world. Dr. 6. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.